Time for me to go. I had a wild ride that ended well. I've been a lurker here for a few years, helping others where I could and reading everyone else's stories to help heal my own. This community is really incredible. I don't believe I'd be where I am now if it weren't for everyone here, the good and the bad. I'm confident in declaring that my infidelity adventure has come to a conclusion and I'm ready to move on. If anybody is interested in my little narrative, Hardships and Ending, please read on. Mostly, I simply need to get this off my chest. Infidelity. My 13-year-old wife, with whom I have a 12-year-old kid, was found to be cheating on me with many people. I'm a computer and was able to retrieve TXTs, screenshots, personal notes, movies, and the entire shebang, which I patiently kept up over months to make a strong case. She had been cheating for 3 years and had to be treated for STI as a result. I got checked and am clean, thankfully. She cheated while I was at work, when I was with our kid, when I was doing chores, you name it. I also discovered she was a high-functioning who took out credit cards in my name and piled up tens of thousands of dollars in debt in my name. Debt that will take me 5-6 years to repay, harming not just myself but also our kid. With all of this data, I created a separation agreement, which I double-checked with a lawyer for accuracy. I showed it to her one morning last summer, 2019, and she freaked out and struck me a couple of times. I phoned the police to have her removed from the home. I did not press charges, but the officers did. She had been high on a combination of perks and beer that morning. I provided her with all of the proof, gigabytes of it, later that week and requested she study and sign the paperwork. She challenged the conditions of the agreement, requesting that I grant her full custody, merely so she could get more government funds since she does not work. Fortunately, I had a few strong stances, and I pushed her hard to have this done considering what she's done to my life and the lives of our kid. She consented to sign the document. She ended up with nothing, no alimony, no home, no property. I just upped the amount of child support I was paying. Overall, it cost me $2,000 by the time it was signed, which is a bargain compared to some of the prices I've heard on here. I was no longer enraged. I was so depressed that I didn't even celebrate the signing. I only wanted she would overcome her addictions. Unfortunately, it did not occur. She continued to rely on government aid, was homeless for a while, ultimately obtained an apartment, but continued to misuse drugs and alcohol while refusing to get treatment. She now faces multiple criminal charges, and she also destroyed my house one evening when I was gone, shattered windows, spray-painted a message on the wall. Fortunately, there were cameras. She hasn't gotten any better, and she only sees our kid a few hours a week, a full downhill spiral. I cared for her for a few months. Despite the damage she caused in my life, I still tried to help her out with favors, but eventually I said F it. She chose this for herself, and I gave up pitying her and cut contact with her through a restraining order, with restrictions to only contact me about our child. She has repeatedly broken those terms, barging into my home, intruding onto the property, and harassing calls and texts. There was just no attempt to improve her position. The following. I had no intention of meeting anybody since I had been put off by my ex's experience with relationships. But I had a great connection with a girl who was a little older than myself. In every aspect, we had a lot in common. We ended up dating and became closest friends. She had also left a marriage under similar circumstances, so we were both aware of what the other had gone through. I couldn't be happier. It's a night and day change from my last relationship. I feel like a new guy, and we seem to complement one another. She has now moved in and gets along well with my kid, as I do with hers. We're like a new family, and everyone gets along and is content. My negative sentiments, pity, and contempt for my ex-wife have all but vanished. I don't even think of her until she texts or calls concerning our kid, which is a rare event. It's good to have that period of my life finally seem like it belongs in the past. Things can improve. I know a lot of you are suffering, fearing the worst, having worries about the future, and regretting your decisions. I thought the same things, that I'd never break out of that rut, and that my life would be a nightmare. Even though I'm still tens of thousands of dollars in debt and currently having my home restored. I'm in a good mood, I got out of the hole, and you will as well if you stay with it. The amount of time it takes to heal is not fixed. It will arrive when it comes for you. I wish you all the best of success, and thank you everyone for your time. Story 2. Wife cheated on me with Aaron Boner. Hello and welcome to everyone. My age is 28 and I have been married for 6 years. I have 2 children. As a result of our trip to Hawaii in February, I learned that my wife had been having an affair with the operator of an airline. My wife and I took a trip to Hawaii in September of this year. In the past, we had always stayed in hotels in Hawaii, but this time we decided to stay in an airline to get a more authentic sense for the island and its people. When we arrived at the airline, we were greeted by the owner outside. He was a young guy in his 30s who worked as a Vans photographer and was a wonderful person to be around. We had a terrific vacation for the whole week, and staying in an airline was a fantastic idea. After we left the island, the owner of the airline made a comment about my wife on social media, and he paid special attention to her. She became entangled in a number of his traps. His pitch would be, "Leave your deadbeat husband, and I'll make your fashion career spectacular," he said. "Come live with me on the island," he'd say at the end of the conversation. "I'll see if I can get you a job at Vans," he'd offer. Everything in my marriage seemed off, and I could constantly sense that something wasn't quite right. I would approach her about particular difficulties, but she would always dismiss them as unimportant and irrelevant. She spoke with him mostly via social media platforms such as Snapchat, Instagram, and FaceTime. One day, I got so interested that I started looking for evidence to support my theory. At first, I felt bad about sneaking around behind her back, but I felt forced to do it. I came across an email she wrote to a psychic in which she questioned the psychic. "Do you see anything with a person named? He has just entered my life?" I was intrigued by her question. As soon as I got on the bike, my heart began to sink. When I got home, I instantly pulled out my phone and sent her the contents of the email. Of course, she denied everything and gave me the runaround, and I was willing to accept her word for what she said. I could always sense when something wasn't quite right, whether it was 6 or 10 months later. I'd always remember her face when I asked her what the email was about, and it caused me a dreadful feeling inside every time I thought about it. As a result, I started having odd dreams and was unable to sleep well. It soon progressed to the point of having an anxious panic attack, which was something I had never experienced before in my life. These attacks would take place right before I went to sleep every night. I eventually turned to marijuana in order to relax and sleep better at night. During the summer of 2019, she decided to go to Hawaii with her sister to celebrate her birthday. Due to work obligations, I was unable to take the vacation I had planned. Of course, I paid for the whole trip so she could accompany her sister, and I had no clue she was meeting up with the owner of the airline, where we had previously been in secret. It was at night that she crept out the door when her sister was sleeping, and the guy picked her up in his car. They were said to have had a fight in his car before parting up. She claims she was uncomfortable the whole time, and that she felt bad as soon as she got inside the car. As a consequence of her actions, she has felt dreadful, remorseful, embarrassed, and even suicidal at times. She had been keeping this little secret for more than 2 years. She opted to come clean about it because we were experiencing difficulties in our marriage, and I eventually sat her down and told her that I feel it is in our best interest for us to separate. That came as a total and utter shock to my system. Her relief that she no longer had to carry it about with her was my first reaction, followed by happiness and relief for myself. I didn't say anything. I just hugged her and wept together all night. These were the most painful days, and possibly even weeks, that followed. I couldn't stop myself from thinking how I had missed this. What is it about me that has pushed her to explore a new romantic engagement with someone else? It's been more than 4 months since I discovered the truth, and every night before bed, I'm filled with regret and misery. Every morning, the first thing that comes to mind is that she has betrayed my trust. For the first 2 to 3 hours of the day, I'm generally sick and feeling nauseated. We've had a lot of heart-to-heart chats, and I really believe she is sad and wishes she could go back in time and reverse things, but for some reason, I continue to feel sick and nauseous every day. Update. I ultimately decided to call the guy, since I was becoming emotionally exhausted by the whole situation. I got in touch with him over Instagram. I received a text message from his wife the next morning when I woke up. His wife contacted me to tell me that she had seen my message in his inbox and that she would want to chat with me. In the end, I decided to contact her and have a conversation regarding our significant others. I was expected to learn how deeply my wife was invested in the relationship and how far she was willing to go to see it through, but she didn't have any evidence to share with me. She claimed to have seen just one screenshot of my wife in a bikini on his phone, which she claimed to have seen. She said that the picture seemed to be a snapshot of a post on her Instagram account. In other words, my wife did not send him anything special to look forward to. She went on to explain her husband's personality and how he acts. She said that he is a narcissist who is interested in other women, and that my wife is one of the 100 other women who have contacted him via Instagram. She said that she has attempted to enlist his support, but that he has been quite antagonistic. In a sidebar, she told me a story about his renting out an apartment on his property to a fitness model, and how one date he forced himself on her, but she protested so fiercely that he had to abandon her. I believe they came to an agreement not to press charges against one another in their private conversations. As a result of my conversation with his wife, I am certain that my wife got associated with a predator. As with the hundreds of other girls he abused, she got ensnared in his web of deceit. My wife, in my perspective, was a victim of circumstance.